to talk to somebody who is adapting to problems, helps other people. Biggest thing you have with the Sage Center is that as long as you figure you're the only person that's under this big thumb that's come down out of heaven and crushed you into the ground, you're feeling bad. When you find that other people have the same kind of problems and they found some solutions, it means that you being just as smart as they are, just as adaptable as they are, you can find solutions too, which will make your life happier. Very, very important. Many hands make light work. Many hands also make difficulties easier to bear.
I think it was really very impactful because we always started our sessions with the families and their children, and we always had a meal together. So right there and there was that community feeling, the sense of belonging, the welcoming. We're all part of this, but even though our journeys are different, we can share stories. And the kids, they did different activities, and I know for my son, I think as he got older, he would say, "Oh, Mom, why did we go through that?" And but I always said it was for a different perspective and presented in a different way that you could get it from myself.
I know after my friends died, I felt quite alone, and I didn't have really anyone else who'd been through similar experiences. So I definitely would have found it helpful to be kind of around others and be able to talk about my experiences with other people who have experienced the loss of a loved one. Like, everyone has kind of friends and parents who are can be very great and helpful, but for me, I found it hard just being able to relate to anyone else because I felt I didn't have a close friend who I could really relate to about my experiences, especially kind of right afterwards, and it would have been helpful to have something like that.
Just not being able to, not being afraid to talk about if I'm feeling uncomfortable or if I'm feeling sad or I'm just remembering or something. I'm allowed to talk to people. I'm allowed to I talk to my mom about that kind of stuff a lot. I'm really comfortable opening up about it. I don't try to shy away from my feelings, kind of thing. It's not something like a light switch that you can just one day after coming here enough times it'll just slip off. You never have to deal with it again. It's an ongoing process. And I still obviously I get sad today thinking about my family and around Christmas time and all that. So don't expect it all just be over one day, because it's not. It's just about helping you being able to understand what you're going through and understand what you're feeling and ways to deal with it when it does come up. That they're not alone. Their feelings aren't unheard of. People understand, and you can open up to people and talk to them, and it helps to do that. It feels better when you can talk to people.
The biggest problem with a disease like cancer is that, I shouldn't say people are cancer phobic, but they don't know how to act. It's almost like they're afraid of getting cancer by talking to a cancer person. We had a friend once who was in a wheelchair, a young guy, a little kid. We had some friends come over, and the mother was just aghast because her kids were going to be so terrified of seeing somebody in a wheelchair, as if she was afraid that her kids would catch wheelchair from him. I don't see life like that. If the person's in a wheelchair, it means They're the kind of person I like to deal with because they're fighters. They don't sit in bed and bemoan themselves. They get themselves a wheelchair and they're going out in the world. There's one fella in the group, when he was first diagnosed with cancer, he was told he had 5 months, 6 months to live. And when we met him, he had been here for almost 15 years. Now, you probably noticed that 15 years is probably a bit longer than 6 months, right? But it's so hard to determine. I couldn't tell any person, young and healthy, old and decrepit or whatever, that they have 15 years ahead of them. And I don't think anybody should ever tell them that they've only got 6 weeks or 6 months ahead of them either. It's going to be as long as it's going to be. A person has to live with as much potency, I guess you should say, as you can.
It opens your eyes because at the moment when you are in a situation and the person you love is terminal, they're struggling through every day. They're trying to figure out what's tomorrow going to look like. Do I even want to wake up today? I'm tired. I don't feel good. I hurt. They're just at wit's end. And then as the person that's caregiving, you feel exactly the same way. You're at wit's end too because you don't know how to help them or what to do for them. And a hospice like Rosedale answers all those questions for you. You don't wonder anymore, what can I do? They say, just come and be with your loved one on their end of life journey and we'll do all the rest. We'll do all the heavy lifting. Just find peace and comfort in the last week, in the last month, in the last 24 hours, whatever it is. And take that as your end of life.
He was in the end of life delirium, which is awful. And they don't show that on TV and movies. That's what death looks like. It's awful. And I was sitting there with him by myself. I'd taken my mom home already and I'd come back. And one of the nurses came in that he had, I think that was like her 3rd day on or her 4th day on. And I said to her, I don't know how you do this every day. Like, I don't know how you do this. And she looked me square in the face and said, it is a privilege to be here at the end of somebody's life. And it was a moment for me that I will never forget because it entirely shifted the way that I thought about what was happening to my dad. Doesn't make, and me being there, doesn't make it less sad, doesn't make it less painful, doesn't make it less excruciating, but it changed my perspective on being there with him at the end of his life. And that end of life delirium is awful, but it was a privilege to be there. And it changed the way I thought about it. She's like, it's a privilege. We always acknowledge the privilege of being there at the beginning of somebody's life, but we don't acknowledge that there is a privilege of being there at the end of somebody's life as well. And I thought, wow, that is so true. We make it, I'm not saying it's not horrible, because when someone comes into the world, it's a joyful experience in general. And leaving the world, it is painful. But it is a privilege to be there and to, but it shifted. Like almost instantly, it shifted how I thought about it. And the compassion she was taking care of my dad. He was in end of life delirium. He did not know what was going on. And I would say the last 3 or 4 days, yes, they were caring for his physical needs to help him pass, but they were there for us as a family. They were there to explain to us what was happening and to make sure we were okay and to have a moment with me about perspective, and shifted the way I thought about how, because I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do this another day. I can't come back here another day and sit here for hours and watch his chest rise and fall, and he doesn't know I'm here. But I needed to be there, you know, and she helped me be there. They weren't just taking care of him physically, they were taking care of all of us as well.
One thing like we do, especially, is like my dad's birthday is in the summer, and he always loved going for ice cream and all that. So my mom and I always go for ice cream the night of my dad's birthday, and we just hang out and talk about him and remember him. And then like around the holidays, especially decorating the Christmas tree, a lot of our ornaments are just like crafts that my sister and I made in preschool and all that. So it's like being able to think about them and being like able to remember them through those specific mementos.
Hospice Calgary and Children's Grief Centers doing really excellent work, and I definitely really appreciated their services as a client and really appreciate what they kind of do as my role as a mentor. I think it's definitely helped a lot of children and teens and their families, and it's always been a wonderful organization that I'm really glad to be a part of.
So when I was thinking about, presenting here, and, the two words that really came to my mind were connection and community. And I think for me, and my experiences in all aspects of how I've been involved with hospice, and hospice being the umbrella of all the other parts with Rosedale, etc. I think no matter what role I've been in, there has always been that sense of connection and community. And I think that those, and I'm going to throw in care. So there's connection, community, and care. And I think that is highly visible and felt, whether you are a client, whether you're a patient, whether you're a volunteer. I can't speak for staff. But I truly am the volunteers for sure. And so it's a feeling where I think when people are going through this really life-changing event in their life, it is a very safe and caring environment that you will get if that's where you turn to.